Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Normal podcast, where we highlight minority business owners and founders, and we use this platform to shed light on their entrepreneur journey. I'd like to welcome everybody via the Flourish Factory. Welcome everybody to the Beyond Normal podcast. My name is Kenny Groom. I want to get right into it with Fred. He's the co-founder of the Flourish Factory. I want to just say I appreciate Fred hopping on the show. And when you're ready to get to it, we're just going to start unloading these questions. You ready, Fred?
Absolutely. Let's talk about it.
Definitely. So here on the Beyond Normal podcast, what we like to do is we like to start out letting our guests just tell the audience a little bit about their background so you can set that stage for where you're at right now with your business.
Okay, for sure. So I think the quick synopsis is I'm originally from Lynn, Massachusetts. My parents came from Haiti. Shout out to them Zoes out there. And they came to Boston and they settled up north of Boston in Lynn, Massachusetts, Sin City. And that's where I grew up. And I grew up in Lynn was a very good place to grow up. And really the interesting part about that was my time there. Entrepreneurship is something that's always been in my family. Like my mom was an entrepreneur. My aunt was like a big entrepreneur. She was always about her hustle. So it was just about that was always something that was part of what I grew up in. And then what happened was obviously when I was working, I was working a job and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do at the time. And it was pretty cool because I had a lot of different resources and a lot of support from the people around me. And so they said, just jump with the idea. And this is funny because this is 4 years ago. This is like around the election time.
Mm-hmm.
So election time is popping off. There's a lot of debate. This is fake news is like kind of popping off. Right. And so I was like, I think online we need a space for us to really have that conversation. And so what was happening was like BuzzFeed was really like bubbling, Blavity, like all these different contents was happening. So I said, I know the internet information is real big and like popular. And I think that like us is like, as Black people, this is the culture needed the space. So I got with my sister, shout out to my sister, Frances. She was one of my co-founders on it. And we started For the Culture. You know what I'm saying? So For the Culture was really a content magazine that we was doing. We was having all our friends, whether they're from college, from high school, just write blogs on this website. And at the same time, we was also having events that were like more experiential events, right? So like we would have like Marvin Gaye and Chardonnay and to discuss like current issues. We were doing like blog settings. And the funny part was we put out shirts and that was the seller. And people were just buying that shirts. And it was just like, so it got me into an interesting place of now I had this business and this strong brand. But I really didn't know how to really distinguish it, right? And so I was just learning so much about business at that time because people were like, we want the shirts. And I was like, nah, like we're supposed to be this blog platform for people to come in and understand information. But I learned a lot. Through that experience. Long story short, I learned enough to be like, hey, like I think that like I didn't know enough about tech at that point, right? I was still trying to figure out like how to really have like a good tech product. I knew tech was the future. And at the same time, I think that the engagement of some of I didn't really know how to engage my audience. And I really didn't have a strong idea who my target audience was. And so I packed up a lot of my stuff in search of this journey. And I moved to the West Coast and I moved to Silicon Valley. So I actually moved to San Francisco in search of like really trying to figure out how to scale this company out, really figure out how to offer a product. And in that time, it's been like about 3 years. I've had the opportunity to work at a lot of like great companies out here in the West Coast. And so what really happened was that I realized that like I had to fold that business. I had to be like, you know what, like that's not really the lane that I wanted to go in. I also realized the business model didn't suit what I was trying to provide, and I wasn't able to provide the value in a way that was interesting. So I was very humbling. And so in the last year, it's taken me some time to kind of figure out like, what did I actually want to be, right? Do I even want to be an entrepreneur anymore? Was there a business model that made sense? And like, what did I really mean by like trying to be for the culture? And so it's taken some time and I'm happy to now be on the other side of it to be like, hey, like, you know what? The new company name is the Flourish Factory. And while for the culture isn't the name of the company anymore, it's still very much the mission. You feel me? So.
Yeah, I appreciate you opening up and giving us that background. Like you said, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, it's in your blood, right? A lot of people, especially in our generation, for you, for example, like you say, your family's from Haiti, right? You're second generation. Now we got that third generation coming behind us. They need to make sure that they're tapping into that because, you know, it's in our blood. It's in our blood to have our own businesses, to really control our own destiny. So, you know, I commend you for doing that. And then moving to Cali, obviously you moving to Cali from, well, Haiti to Boston and then Boston to Cali. I bet you saw some different cultures out there, and I know you're in a good spot right now. So moving on to the next question, you know, around the Flourish Factory where you're at right now, you know, what was the moment, or like what was the spark for you to say this is the new business that you want to go into?
Okay, cool. So it was a lot of sparks, right? It was a lot of sparks, and it was a lot of conversations with a lot of different people. So one of the things I like to say to entrepreneurs is like talk to people, right? I will call up people, you know, I would talk to people and I'll just call them up and just pitch the idea, right? And be like, yo, like, here's what I'm thinking and here's how it's moving. And what was happening was, in the pursuit of for the culture, what I did was I was looking to work with content creators. And then so I was looking to work with like Black content creators online, right? And I was trying to make sure that there's a space for them. And so when we looked at that, then I started meeting with a lot of content creators, and then I realized, oh, really the truth is that content creators had to sell a product, right? So if you're a content creator, it's like you got to go for advertisement or you selling a product. You have something that, like, there has to be a call to action. Someone has to click a link to purchase something for you. Even if it's a tutorial, even if it's a webinar, right? You got to sell something at the end of that for you to make that money back, right? Like content costs. Mm-hmm. And so as I was I got to meet and talk to a lot of different people that were selling products online. And at the same time, I think that one of the biggest stops was like, shout out to Oakland, California. That's a beautiful place. And there's nothing like the Bay. There's nothing like Oakland. And at Oakland, it was like every other party I was going to, there was a marketplace. So I'm meeting with these vendors and I'm just buying stuff from them. I'm buying T-shirts. I'm buying like jewelry, right? And I'm seeing that like, hey, like, there's a community of vendors just that are actually selling their products, and they're actually selling them online. And the two focal points of them selling it was like, hey, like they were selling on Instagram or they were selling in a live space, right? And I realized that like, okay, but these are the same people that like are trying to grow their businesses, and they're selling the products of the content creators. That I saw a connection. It hit me. The content creators can be the ones to help sell these things, right? Because one of the biggest issues with some of these vendors was like they couldn't actually market outside of their community. And so it was just more about like that spark hit me. And at the same time, the place I was living, the house I was living with all my friends was called the Flourish Factory. And it was really built out for us to come in and grow and build ourselves out. And so it made sense that like, hey, like if I'm going to work with these vendors and these people that own products and goods, and really help them scale out their products and really help them grow it, I want to help them flourish, you know, and that's been a mantra of us. And so it's like making it the Flourish Factory just made sense.
Yeah, I like that. And you're building that community out. Like you said, it doesn't make sense necessarily for folks to have to go through it on their own when you got people, you know, living that similar journey that you're on. So, you know, great thinking there. So now that you started your second business, I want to take a step back, right? And you touched on for the culture actually, you know, closing that down, right? And that being a big decision and you having to kind of humble yourself. So along those lines, you know, what's something that you know now that you would have maybe liked to know when you first started being an entrepreneur?
Ooh. Start lean, you know, like I think it's just all money in, of course, you know, but like not all the money in if you don't know. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like you just think that like I was just blowing cash on things and ideas without trying them at a smaller scale. The second piece is that you can't do it alone. Mm-hmm. Right? I think that as an entrepreneur, what happens is you get that spark, you get that moment, and it's your idea. And you almost treat it like your child, right? But what do they say? Like, it takes a village. Mm-hmm. And I think that it takes a village to also grow your business. And so you have to be able to like pass that off. And I think at times, because my vision wasn't clear, I wasn't receptive to feedback. And I had to learn that, right? I had to be receptive to a feedback. I had to be receptive to like, hey, this doesn't work. And the last piece is like definitely understanding your target audience, right? Your target market. I think funny story, one time, because, you know, like for the culture, it was supposed to be for us. It was like, it was a time. And someone said, yo, like, who's your target market? And I said, for the culture. If you don't get it, it ain't for you. You know what I mean? And it was like, but they were asking, like, you got to give me a demographic. Like, does this make sense? Mm-hmm. You know? And so it's like really understanding who you're trying to serve in whatever type of service or business that you're doing is very important, because like once you understand the customer, once you understand like who you're actually building this for, that's when a lot goes on.
So I want to dive into a little bit just around, you mentioned kind of having that community versus you kind of being on your own. You know, what are some of the benefits you think to, you know, going in with maybe a co-founder or someone who, you know, within that community environment versus kind of being that solopreneur, entrepreneur, and then you kind of saying, hey, I'm gonna wear all the hats myself?
Well, I think it's simple. You can only scale so far by yourself, right? Like you can only scale so far by yourself. And I think that like you're gonna have blind spots that you're gonna need someone else to see. Right. Like I'm definitely a big vision guy, but like my sister Frances was an everyday person, you know, so she was implementing a lot of the stuff that I was able to like get the big picture. Some of my skill sets is I can build a good team. Right. I've been able to do that for years. I'm able to recruit people and get them to believe in the vision. Right. But in terms of like implementing direction, some people are stronger. And so it's like understand that you have a weakness. That's what being humble is. Right. I mean, when you look at it, all great, who was it? Ken Robinson said it on a TED Talk one time. He said, all great things were built with people in teams. Mm-hmm. You know, like nothing great was just like one person came through. Even Jordan had to hire. You know what I mean? He didn't do it till he had Pippen and Rodman and he had the cast behind him, right? So for you to really make it happen, it's always going to be a team. Even if you can be the front runner of the star, you got to have some pieces around you. So I think that like if you're a solo entrepreneur, you should have some good contractors, some good partnerships. Right, you're still not going to do it by yourself. That just means you're an entity by yourself. If you're building a company, then it's about like understanding who's going to make that final decision. That's always right. People always want to look up and be like, okay, like when it all falls down, who's making that final decision? And I think that like that needs to be handled before you go into it with someone else. You know.
No, I like that. And so, you know, building on that, saying obviously, you know, you need a team behind you. You're not going to get anything done by yourself. You're going to need somewhat of a community. You know, in terms of the issue right now, that's, you know, really front and center for all of us right now, you know, with the racial injustice going on. You know, it started out beginning of the year, we had COVID, then we had, you know, the George Floyd situation, which was sad. And then, you know, just name after name. And now we have Jacob out in the Midwest. So, you know, how are those conversations around racial inequalities impacting you and your business in this current state we're in 2020?
Man, that's such a good question. I think there's two parts in there. First one, how's it affecting me? And I think that it's definitely affecting me. I think today I had to take some time because I had to be honest with myself. I was like, wow, you try to power through it some days, right? You try to keep going to work. You try to like look past it, but like it affects you, man. You go online, it affects you, right? And I was talking to a good friend of mine, and I said, they ain't just killing us, they're killing our spirits too. Mm-hmm. You know, and so it's like my energy's off, you know, because I feel for the brother, I feel for his family, I feel that could be me, you know. So I think that it naturally affects me, you know what I mean? And I think that like for me specifically, on the Flourish Factory, what we want to do is we want to help Black entrepreneurs in terms of like Black businesses. So it's like this is directly affecting us. This is the systemic part of all that, right? And so a lot of that just affects me directly, but then in terms of the business, it has to ignite a fire because it's just like, maybe this is the way that I can actually give back, right? Maybe this is the way of like me constantly pursuing my dreams is the way that I'm able to kind of pursue it and go after it and grow it, right? So it's like, that's my thought process. It's like, okay, I need to continually work on my craft. I need to continually work on what I'm doing because I got to push the needle for my people, you know? And I would say that because it's like small things, like specifically like the shirt that I designed for the business, right? Like right now, because we're in the e-commerce business, part of what the Flourish Factory does is, of course, we're always going to have merch and stuff that we're selling. And so specifically this shirt, I made this shirt off of frustration. I made the shirt like stop calling the cops on the culture because like, you know, like I think that's something that's happening. That's what leads to a lot of this, right? And so that's just a portion of the pipeline that I just want to bring awareness to. You know, like we feel like we're always under police order. So I think that like if you have a business right now, especially as a Black person, it's already ingrained. They've already made it a thing for you. You know, so so it's okay to bring that in. And then at the same time, when we think about what it's affected in some interesting ways because now there are more Black entrepreneurs than ever. At the same time, when you add on to it, there was actually a study in Yelp in the last 3 months, there was a 7,000% increase in inquiries for Black businesses, right? And then earlier this year, there was an article that, what happened?
I was just gonna say real quick plug. I know it's late in the month. This month is actually Black Business Month. So make sure we out there supporting the businesses. Like you said, I just got my hair cut today. Had to go to my barber. First time in a couple months, but just make sure you're going out there and supporting your local Black businesses. Sorry to cut you off, Fred. I had to put that in there.
Yeah, but it's like that's what it's really about. Is like you see the growth there, and I think that we had an interesting time, right? So this is affecting my business because also like I think that like this is the time where it's got to be a time where we start thinking of that process. And I think that like when you read a lot, people say like capitalism ain't gonna save this problem. I'm gonna be honest right now with you. Mm-hmm. And so when I tell people, yo, I'm starting this e-commerce business, I want to work with Black entrepreneurs that are selling products and goods. They're like, yeah, but is that really helping the problem? And I say like, I don't think capitalism is the way out, but I do think that us having our own commerce is the way. And what I mean by that is like us having a little piece of what we can own, right? Us having, in two ways. One, economically, right? Maybe this little side hustle that you have is like you're selling candles, you're selling glass, or maybe you're selling t-shirts, right? It may not make you Jeff Bezos, but if you could actually pay your rent with that, that's different.
Yeah, that's
fact. You know what I'm
facts.
saying? Like that's a whole different energy that you're able to do, right? And then on top of that, like the confidence that they build you, right? Because now you're able to do that. And then it opens you up to barter systems. It opens up to you changing. Like, you know what? I'm going to go to my mechanic and I'm going to be able to trade him with some goods and services, So it's really a lot of that is like, hey, we need to really open that up because as Black people, right, whether you go from Haiti, South Africa, Brooklyn, New York, like Oakland, California, there's always marketplaces.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? There's always marketplaces for everyone to kind of like, for people to sell, for people to do their own thing. And so I think that it's important for us to now look at each other and be like, you know what? Instead of me going to buy that, I'm going to buy it from you just because it's going to keep that money there. And you're going to be able to take that and build it in. Because I think that there's been a lot of conversations about us circulating dollars and us figuring that out. And again, like I'm not an expert, but I have done do my due diligence to realize that like at every level, a marketplace and commerce has been in our DNA. And if we're able to do that now in the global economy, you can really do something.
Yeah, no, that's facts, man. And I know exactly what you're speaking to because I don't even know the exact stat, but the stat was just pretty much like in terms of our dollar, we spend it and then it kind of leaves our community like the fastest out of any other ethnic group. So I think that's really important right now, supporting other businesses. And like you said, that barter thing is huge, where businesses are kind of trading services and goods and making sure, businesses grow together versus kind of, thinking with that crab in the barrel mentality.
Exactly. And the biggest thing is that crabs weren't meant to be in a barrel. Right? So it's like I think that we feel confined, right? So the other thing is that like when we have these entrepreneurs, right, one of the biggest issues that Black businesses are facing right now is the simple fact of one is capital, just general money. Mm-hmm. The first factor ain't going to solve that. The second thing is marketing and advertising, right? So when you look at it, the problem is that people don't have enough money to now advertise their business, whether it be on Facebook ads or whether it be like just general advertising, whether it be newspaper and all those different areas. So the goal is let's amplify the voice because it isn't just circulating the dollar in your neighborhood. We need to circulate your money globally, right? Like why can't someone in China really want to buy a product from someone that's right in Brooklyn, New York?
I agree with that, man, completely. And I'll say, I think it's great, what you're doing because you're giving, you're setting that blueprint for businesses moving forward. And like you said, you want to make sure the businesses in your community that you saw in Oakland, you want to make sure that they're eating moving forward. And that's ultimately that really aligns with what I'm trying to do here with the Beyond Normal podcast as well, because to your point, you've been saying it the whole conversation. Like, I don't eat if entrepreneurs aren't eating and they don't build their platforms. But that's exactly why, Beyond Normal podcast is positioned the way it is to talk to business owners like yourself and any other business owner out there. You need a platform, just reach out and, we're going to make sure we have a conversation.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think, but it's difficult, right? Because one, like we're not really taught about that, right? We're not really taught about how to build this out. And it's cool because like we were talking about earlier, LLC Twitter, LLC Instagram, right? Build your generational wealth is popular, right? Like everyone on the gram flashing it up, like they, you know what I mean? Stock trading is big now, but the everyday is hard. You know, the everyday is hard, right? And so it's just like everyone's creating boutiques. But like I got 40 shirts, 50 shirts right now that I gotta go package up. Like this is a process that we all have to do. But I think that like if you don't think you're alone in it, but also you're given resources, you're gonna continue to do it. Right. And I think that everyone is building a brand, but it's about that longevity. And it's also seeing the actual returns, right? And if we can accelerate a lot of the profits that people are able to see, again, not making you Jeff Bezos, but let's make sure you can pay your bills. Right. And then you're going to keep doing it. And I think that like that comes from like the time of like my mom used to sell Avon products, right? And she used to make her little money on the side, just doing little things. It's just like, I think that if we stay within that spirit, but then we're able to scale it globally so people can get these orders, I think there's a niche there.
You just gave me a flashback to the Avon lady in my neighborhood.
Right? You got to think, but she was an entrepreneur.
That's facts.
Right? And she was an entrepreneur and she was building other stuff. She had her products. She was figuring her things out. And I think that for us, it's like, if we can create that space, then why not? You know, that's what the Flourish Factory is really building up to be. It's building up to be a place where, hey, we're going to highlight your stuff, right? If like, I would say like we all got that friend that's selling, let's say, I got a friend that's selling shea butter, right? She sells shea butter. And so it's like, okay, you sell shea butter. You're doing a great job. You got your website up, right? You're selling a couple products on Instagram. Okay, let me amplify it, but then at the same time, let me like make sure that we strategically put your ads in a good place so then you can actually hit your target audience a little bit more, right?
I love it.
So
I love it.
It's just lead generation. You know, because you could sell on Etsy, or you could sell on. There are other different platforms that are selling, right? But I think that like the community aspect, and also at the same time, it's making sure that like, hey, you feel as though like your product is being pushed. I think that's going to be huge.
Nah, you spitting all facts. Like you said, the LLC hashtags is, you know, on Twitter, they're on Instagram, but I feel like it's really the conversations like the one that we're having now where people can really take those nuggets away and it just doesn't end up being a tweet. It's not just an Instagram post. A lot of times you got to hear something, you got to read something. And so I think this current situation, COVID, right, this is the perfect time for a lot of us to have these conversations and to pick up those materials and make sure that we're feeding that brain, feeding that muscle in our head so that we can make something happen moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And it's stuff like things that you're doing that's like going to push us forward, right? It's be able to get this message, right? And being able to have content that can then now we can have this out in the world forever. And exactly. And I think that's important because you're capturing the story. Right. And so if we don't capture our stories, they're going to capture our stories. And so now at the beginning, it's like, hey, this is the beginning of me launching, right? This is the beginning of like me telling people, hey, let's join together and get this going. 5 years from now, this is going to be valuable, for both.
Exactly. And you touched on something just there at the end, and then I want to pass it to you again. But just in terms of like when they tell our story, I mean, we've seen that time and time again. And right now, we're at the point now where we're a little frustrated because we're like, you're only telling one side of our story. They're not necessarily telling that whole story, which is where we're at right now. So feeling good about, the change that's coming. I don't know if you guys on the Instagram are feeling it. But I know I'm feeling it. I'm feeling all the changes. I'm feeling all the energy, and I know something magic's going to happen. 2020 is a reset, obviously with COVID and all the things going on. But 2021 is going to be special, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I agree, bro. And I think some of my thought processes, I think that it's a great awakening. You got no other choice. And the other thing that COVID taught me was that anything could change, right? We was living this life. We was at day parties, right? We was, you know what I mean? We cared. We thought our jobs were secure. Like we wasn't really thinking about it like that. And then within a month and a half, everything changed. And so now it's like, you got to dig in. You got to really realize like at each day, how are you moving, right? It made us think about our health in a different way. And so in my opinion, it's like 2021, our generation, especially millennial generations, is going to be interesting because now it's like we're gonna double down and get serious. And I especially think it's like us Black people, like we are looking at everything a lot different, right? Because now the topic of conversation is like, you can't shake George Floyd. You can't shake Jacob. You got to sit there and deal with it, and they got to deal with it. And so we got to have that conversation. I think that we'll continue to push it to the forefront, and we're going to continue to make space for us.
Well said. In closing, I always give my guests the opportunity. Anything you want to close us out with, in addition to that, just letting everybody know where they can reach out and stay connected to the Flourish Factory.
Yeah, for sure. I think right now, one of the things I'm doing is like building my team. So working on a few things, definitely looking for someone that's interested in a front-end engineering, just like web services, a marketing person that can work with the branding and things like that. I think those are the things that like need to be developed, and it'd be great to partner with someone, right? Really co-create what the brand should be. I'm really interested, looking forward to building that relationship. The other thing is that if you got a vendor, a homie or a friend selling something dope, send me their stuff. You know what I mean? I'm even the Instagram, the website, allow me to reach out. If you're a vendor, send me your stuff. You can send it to me at theflourishfactory.com. Also, at the same time, you can just contact me on our Instagram. That's our biggest platform right now, at The Flourish Factory. And let's have a conversation. Let's chat. Let's learn about what you're trying to do. If I can assist or I can help, I will. And that's just really how I kind of try to do things.
That's dope. And I appreciate, you coming up with this idea. I gotta give you some kudos, because you're showing me about this Instagram, this IG live, and how you can make sure that I myself, and I know you're already doing it, that we're connecting with our customer base, right? You mentioned that throughout, really knowing what your target audience is. So I got to tip my hat to you, give you kudos, because I feel like you're leading the charge on a lot of things that people are just now catching up to. So I'm excited, and I'm also excited to see, where Flourish Factory is next year, and then 10 years in the future, obviously.
Oh, for sure. Appreciate you, Kenny.
All right, now.
All right, bro.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Normal podcast. We can be streamed across all major streaming platforms, in addition to YouTube. Come back again.